I've said, and it's true as I see it, that there's 3 stages of main guitar players throughout history of guitar, and in each of 2 categories. There's 3 in the rock and roll bluesish type of, maybe a little swingy, jazzy kind of feel rock and roll, and there's 3 in the kind of, neoclassical, heavy metal kind of feel. And I want to talk about them in a second, and how I feel about how I've progressed in relating to these guitars. So in the rock and roll in the rock and roll blues realm, the first main dude. Cars are going by. Sorry. In rock and roll, the first dude of the 3 is Jimi Hendrix. He started rock and roll to me. I mean, the Beatles technically did on paper, but so what? Jimi Hendrix started rock and roll to me. Then it was Eddie Van Halen. He saved rock and roll, basically, in my book. Some say heavy metal he saved, but whatever. He saved something. And then after that, Steve Vai. He's the only guy in the rock. He's the guy in the rock blues realm that actually took it further than Eddie, in my book. Other people just did what Eddie did and did it their way, but Steve did something with it and made its own thing, and he's the 3rd guy in that realm to me. And then in the neoclassical heavy metal realm, the first dude to me is Ritchie Blackmore. He was great. And the next guy is Randy Rhoads, and the 3rd guy is Yngwie Malmsteen. So you can think of it as, two rows of 3 or 3 columns of 2. You want to break it down on paper. And I want to suggest what I progressed in my head. Some people think I just make shit up just because I stutter or whatever I do, but they're going to think that no matter what I do is my feeling. So I'm just going to say what I feel anyway. I finally got past Randy Rhoads and graduated, at least to me, in my head, to Yngwie Malmsteen. So I've got all 6 covered now. You might say you could even put them all in line in order, because the three rock and roll dudes are more famous and more popular, but the 3 classical dudes are more technically involved. So you could almost put them in order from 1 to 6. So first Jimi Hendrix, and then Ritchie Blackmore, who took it a little further, but took it in a neoclassical sense. Then Eddie Van Halen, who went beyond Ritchie, but in a rock sense. Then Randy Rhoads, who took it beyond Eddie, but in a classical sense. And you see me? And then Steve Vai, who took it further than Randy, but in a rock and roll sense, blues sense. And then Yngwie, who took it a little further than Steve, but in a classical sense. And I think I was stuck at Steve in that progression until today. I kind of graduated in my mind. I'm ready to take on Yngwie too. So there's that. Now there's one more thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about the simple beauty of the intro to Stairway to Heaven. I just did Stairway to Heaven 3 times. My first take was blah, but I kept it. Second take was awful, and I deleted it. My 3rd take was so right on that I actually got a copyright on it. So it means I nailed it in my book. Someone recognized it, computer or otherwise, and that's a good sign. It means I played it right. Anyway, but after playing it and seeing what the chords are and all that and structure and everything, believe it or not, the most impressive little part of it is the intro. It's so people are so sick of it that it kind of tends to lose, to me at least, it kind of tends to lose its magnitude and its importance when it really is a cool thing that might have only been done that one time in rock and roll history, and it was very cool. So we'll talk about it for a second here. So basically the whole song is basically in A minor. But Jimmie does a trick in the intro to Stairway to Heaven that I think is really cool. He does a descending chromatic half-step thing from the root of the scale, which is A, down to the 5th of the scale, which is E. It says E is the 5th of A, and E is the 4th below A. So if you start from A and you go a fourth in half steps, you go from you go down a fourth in half steps from the root, which is A. So the notes I'm talking about would be A, then G sharp, then G, then F sharp, then F, and then E. And that's basically what Jim does in the intro. I'm going to explain that so you guys can do it too. Don't just think it's, oh, that's Stairway to Heaven, it's blah, no one cares anymore. That's a very great thing that he's ascended in half steps. Oh, we're good. Anyway, descended in half steps from the root of the minor scale down to the fifth, and he does it via chords. So let me go through that so we can all understand that and do it ourselves if we want, because it really is a useful device. Anyway, it starts with the first note in that is A, and that's the root of an A minor chord. Next note in that is G sharp, G as in goat, and that is the augmented fifth of a C major 7 sharp 5 chord. That implies the A harmonic minor mode, and in the A harmonic minor mode, the third degree is C, and the seventh chord on that C is a major 7 sharp 5, and the sharp 5 in C is a G sharp, and that's a half step down below the A. So there's that. And then he does a G major triad. Well, that's just the 7 chord in an A Aeolian mode, and that gives you the note G, the next note in the half step downward progression from starting with A. The next note is sharp. That turns out to be the third of a D major triad, and that D major triad implies an A Dorian mode, because if you have a D major triad and in the key of A, you're playing A Dorian mode. You could say A Mixolydian, but since it's a minor progression, I'm going to say A Dorian, because Dorian has a minor third, whereas Mixolydian has a major third. I'm going to say that's A Dorian. Then the next note is F, and that's played by an F major 7th chord, and that implies A Aeolian or A natural minor. And the F major 7th chord is a Lydian chord in and of itself. But Lydian on F is Aeolian on A, so you're talking A Aeolian or A natural minor. And then he does a cool thing. He goes from the chord G to A. Now the chord G, as in goat, has a D in it, so he's actually breaking the cycle just a little bit. He doesn't go straight from F to E. He goes from F to D to E, but that's still cool and okay. The D is the fifth in G, the chord right before the A, and E E's the fifth in A, which is the chord after G. So by going from G to A, from G major to A minor in this case, and therefore the fifth going from D to E, you basically are one way or another going from F down to E. Only you do D right before the E. So that's a half step in fourths down, half step, throughout a perfect fourth, down from A to E in the key of A minor. And that is not a trivial thing. I don't think Jimmie invented that. I think it's a classical thing that's been done since Mozart and all that. But to do it in rock and roll, and not only that, make it so popular that everybody is actually completely sick of it, first of all, is great to do in and of itself, and second of all, doesn't make that thing stupid just because we're all tired of it. So I love you guys. Peace. Rock and roll.